Hey everybody, it's Tyler Esselman.
And it's Michael Osinski.
And you are listening to This One Goes to 11.
This One Goes to 11. It's the place where we invite someone to share what they think is a perfect album with us.
So perfect, in fact, Michael, that 10 out of 10 simply isn't good enough.
Simply isn't. Simply is not.
Simply ain't. What's going on, man? You good?
I guess so. Yeah.
How you feeling?
It occurs to me sometimes we plan out a little bit of banter beforehand.
Yeah,
I just realized we hadn't planned anything, so now we're just sort of.
It's kind of nice.
Oh, okay. So I will take this opportunity,
if you will.
I will take this opportunity to advocate for something, though, which is,
okay.
I don't know if you know this about me, Tyler, but I do love a good s'mores flavored thing.
Did I? I don't know if I knew that about you. That's such a strong character choice for you.
Yeah. And I just have to say that the Breyers s'mores ice cream that they have right now is it's top notch. It's just,
good to know. So I'm like all about a s'more. I'm all about a s'more on the campsite, like over the fire. Like that's
nothing beats that.
That's my jam.
But
you're saying even like s'mores themed dishes, you're into it.
Yeah, well, if it's done well. Like I remember a while back, Sprinkles Cupcakes made like a s'mores cupcake or something, and it did not work because the chocolate ganache at the center had congealed, and it was not a satisfying experience.
My guy has opinions about ganache. If there's anything I know about Michael,
I got some ganache. Ganache.
Well, it is Bake Off season 2, so I got ganache on the brain more often than
see a doctor for that, Tyler.
More often right now than maybe ever during the year, but. I got my favorites, and those will be for our Bake Off pod. Today,
we're not going to start.
You've found yourself once again in the This One Goes to 11 living room, and once again we have a fantastic guest, someone that we are very excited to bring you. Part of listen. Let me get sentimental for a minute. Our family, our podcast family grows ever larger, ever more interconnected and tangled. This great web of the internet that brings us together. It does amazing things if you just let it loose. So we're very excited to bring one of our internet friends onto the pod today. Michael, who are we speaking to?
We are speaking to Rich Hammond, the black sheep of a musical family. Rich chose therapy over chaotic inspiration, a decision he does not regret. An amateur at everything, some acting, terrible guitar playing, and acceptable drumming, he finally settled on the popular and on-trend creative outlet, long-form writing on the internet. His blog, Record Reconstructor, where he writes thinly disguised midlife crisis diary entries disguised as thoughts on the music he is listening to, was once described by NFL TV analyst Greg Rosenthal as, quote, fantastic. But while waiting for inevitable viral success, he works to help save the world working as a math nerd for a renewable power company. Rich, welcome to This One Goes to 11.
Thank you so much, guys. I'm so excited to be here. This is almost a dream come true for me.
Oh. It is. Well, it is for us, and it is for us to just continue our international connections. Michael, how did this happen? What was the genesis of this?
This happened. I mean, I guess there's two ways this happened that sort of intersected. One being the fact that we started. We have an account on Blue Sky now.
Okay.
And Rich has one there, and he added ATT us a few times. But then also we have a mutual friend with Rich, one Mr. Matt Risby. So it's
I'm part of the Matt Risby cinematic universe over here in the UK.
You really are, because you're the third point in it. So it's like really, it's a fantastic thing. And we mentioned this when we talked to Matt just recently of like, if I wouldn't have walked into that bakery.
It's such a strange thing, isn't it? Yeah.
It so is. It's like the butterfly effect of that has been very valuable to us. But you do wonderful work online. I've loved reading.
Thank you very much.
I've loved reading your blog, and there's you're very clearly a kindred spirit to us in terms of like how you think about music, and we should expect no less from a friend of Risby as well.
And you should tell our listeners and viewers, like, what is your big quest this year?
Yes, I should probably. So, and I'll talk a bit about why I did this, I guess. But the point of the blog this year is to try and listen to 1,000 studio albums before over the course of the calendar year. So starting from the 1st of January all the way through to the end of December, can I listen to 1,000 different studio albums No compilations, no EPs, nothing which says greatest hits on it. Has to have been published, has to have come out with the artist's name on it. And this kind of came about for two reasons. One was I got my Spotify Wrapped thing at the end of last year, and I realized that in amongst that, my top 100 listened songs were essentially the track list to 5 albums, which I'd just constantly gone, I need to listen to some music. What have I listened to recently? Just press that again. And I get really kind of terrified that I'm not listening to new music and I'm not out there exploring new stuff. And I saw that and it kind of haunted me for a while. At the same time, there is a quiz show here in the UK called Only Connect, which your New York Times connections people will be familiar with, as they stole their connecting wall from the show.
Really?
And
interesting.
One of the things that this show does is that when the teams come on, they give everyone an esoteric fact about the contestants. And one of the contestants, their introductory fact was that they'd listened to 1,000 albums in a year. And I sat on my couch and I was like, 1,000 albums in a year, that seems doable. But as a numbers person, I'm conscious how deceptive numbers can be. Like, I do numbers for my for a living, and 1,000 is one of those numbers which everyone in their head thinks, well, I can conceive of what 1,000 is, therefore it must be easy to do.
Yeah.
And then you figure out that means you have to listen to 3 albums every single day for the entire calendar year to get near that number.
Yeah.
And then I was like, well, that's interesting. That's a challenge. Can I do that? Are there 1,000 albums that I want to listen to out there?
Sure.
So I kind of sat, and from November through to December, I tried to figure out, is there 100 albums off the top of my head that I could just name and I would listen to fine? And if I can get the first 10%, then sure, let's lean into it and try and do 1,000.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I just about got there. So I kind of threw my hat over the fence on the 1st of January and was like, okay, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
And I have been...
I like that phrase, by the way. Threw my head over the fence. I don't know if I've ever heard that. That's a good one.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. That's a good one. I'm going to use that.
I mean,
so I am fully engaged now because I know people like statistics. I made a point of updating my statistical sheet today.
Yeah.
I have listened to, at time of recording, 771 different studio albums by 508 artists, 638 hours of music this year, 24 and a half days, and 9,637 songs.
Damn.
Wow.
See, now I'm asking myself too, are there enough times in the day that you want to be listening to music? Right. Well, so this is, all right. This is very worthy. This is we're going to talk about this as we go along. Okay. I want this to be kind of a through line, obviously, but this is a great scene setting that you've done for us. So, okay, now you clearly know music. You clearly have a deep well to pull from. But today you can only make your case for one album, Rich. And so can you tell us, what album hath thou brought before This One Goes to 11 tribunal today?
As you know, I kind of agonized about this, but I have decided that I would like to represent the debut album by Manchester band Elbow, Asleep at the Back.
All right. Asleep at the Back. Michael, did you know this album?
No.
You didn't? Okay.
I mean, and
Did you know Elbow?
I had heard of them, but like if you had played an Elbow song, I wouldn't have like picked it out. I mean, it does sort of, I think, and maybe it's a sort of like, they strike me as a band that never quite made it across the pond.
Just
with
how
the same...
how you characterize them in your list. Yeah.
I mean, and I was in London I was studying in London for like 4 months at the beginning of 2000. Which is, not quite, this album wasn't out yet.
But they had been around, though.
They'd been around. And also, frankly, like, I mean, I'm sure we'll get into this. This does sort of sound like all of my favorite UK bands that I know. I can be like, oh, this is like that. It sort of feels like a pretty amazing patchwork of like UK rock in some ways. It's not to minimize their identity as a band.
No,
just sort of
absolutely.
like from my American perspective, that's what I'm hearing essentially. So
you're getting us ahead of ourselves because
it's true.
Because for any of our listeners who also may not be up to date on Elbow, I knew of Elbow, kind of in the most cursory of fashions, and And if you don't know Elbow, we do have a convenient feature to get you up to speed. People really like it.
You say it's everyone's favorite, so
they really like this one. It's great, guys. But what's it called, Michael?
It's called The Beginner's Guide to Elbows Asleep in the Back in 60 Seconds. And this week it is being done by Tyler.
It is, yes.
So, Rich, you've heard the pod. You know you get to evaluate his case here. I will keep time. Feel free to use whatever rubric you deem appropriate.
So I will. The only thing I'm going to say is that there's an English place name that Tyler might be trying to pronounce if he goes deep into the origins of this band. That's a real landmine. You might just get this one wrong, and that might just ruin your rating.
I'm willing to. I did some phonetic. I did some implement my knowledge of the IPA to confirm a few. I still could be wrong. Wait,
is there something Welsh going on here?
No. Far simpler than that.
Okay.
If Rich and I are thinking of the same thing,
I'm sure we are.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
All
but
right.
also you, as you might remember, I do watch a fair amount of what you call football. And,
yes, this is true. Yeah,
and soccer. So I am steeped into some of these pronunciations a little bit. So I think I have a decent chance. I still could fuck it up, but
okay, let's find out.
All right. Well, I got 60 seconds on the clock. You ready, Tyler?
Mm-hmm.
3, 2, 1, go.
To the uninitiated, Guy Garvey might sound like the name of a grizzled provincial policeman forced to suffer the eccentricities of Hercule Poirot, but in fact, Mr. Garvey is the lead singer and lyricist for the Mancunian rock outfit Elbow. Garvey, along with Craig and Mark Potter, Peter Turner, and Richard Jupp, formed the band Mr. Soft while students at Berry College in 1990. They'd rechristened themselves in 1997 Elbow, and, fits and starts notwithstanding, released their debut full-length Asleep in the Back in 2001. What does it sound like? The thinking man's Coldplay, the drinking man's Radiohead, any lens you may choose to apply. Garvey & Co. were applauded for their cohesive prog-inflected tunage, and for Garvey's hard-on-his-sleeve baritone. Stereogum called it bleary, nocturnal, rain-soaked, alternating between haunting stories and nostalgic flashbacks, both warm and unpleasant. It earned them a Mercury Prize shortlist among other plaudits. Elbow and especially Garvey have ridden the post-Brit-pop wave admirably in the ensuing years. 9 more celebrated albums and a distinct feeling to them that only the real heads know Elbow.
Very good.
Look at that.
Very good.
Oh!
Nailed it in the 60 seconds.
That one was
Nailed
good.
it.
That one was good. Okay.
On the clock, full of trenchant information. It's hard to not give you a stellar review for that.
Thank you. And did I get it, Barry? Is it Barry?
Yes, absolutely
Okay.
correct.
There we go. Barry College.
Wait, how's it spelled, though?
Bury. So
Right.
this
Okay.
is...
Okay.
So
you'll get Bury, you'll get all
Yeah.
manner of...
Bury. Yeah.
Bury. Yeah, that would be more like Canadian or something.
Yeah.
Seriously, Canadian pronunciations are a little strange to me sometimes. I've noticed.
That's true. Yeah.
Sweet. Okay, cool. Rich, so
Yes.
you gave me this stellar. I appreciate it. This is a band I think is fascinating and has like so many contradictions and kind of like a really, really particular place that I can perceive in their kind of in like the musical strata of this time. So, but before we get into that, because there is plenty to talk about there, let's talk a little bit more about you, if you don't mind.
Of course, absolutely.
Tell us a little bit more about what your relationship is with music. You've already given us a glimpse into how you're actioning that right now.
Yeah.
But like, how does it live in you? What
Okay, so
yeah.
this is going to be a bunch of things that I'm going to say. It's going to sound a bit like a Big Fish Tim Burton film, but I promise you
Hell yeah.
all of it is true.
Underrated film.
So I have a weird family history, which I alluded to in my bio. So my father was a diplomat, but before he was a diplomat and before he was in the forces, he was in a band in Birmingham in the UK in the 1960s, which never quite made it, had one record pressed. But then when they broke up, all the members of that band went on to be in larger bands who were well known. So like Dave Morgan, who is the drummer from ELO, was in my dad's band. Half of Fairport Convention were in my dad's band. When their record deal was signed, all the band left and they said to my dad, you can keep the band name and the deal, but you'll need to get new people to come in and play for us.
Wow.
And he decided not to pursue it, walked into a recruitment office, joined the Royal Air Force, and started his career there. So
Wow.
I have a kind of history-soaked family relationship to music,
Damn.
going back from like the very, very beginning of my earliest memories.
Man, you live on one small ass island. Let me
yeah.
tell you that. Like that's what I'm thinking right now. That is a tiny island that you live on.
Yes, seriously.
Crazy.
So when my parents kind of were raising me and my sister, well, there's this, the idea of this iPad generation. What do we do with the kids? We give them an iPad, we sit them to one side. What they did to me was that my dad would just sit me next to his big hi-fi stack. And he put big headphones on me. He had these big blue headphones, which were way too big for me. And he would sit me down and he would put records on and just leave me sat on the floor of our dining room, like age 3, age 4. And so I grew up as a toddler listening to Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band and Wish You Were Here. And my parents were huge Beatles fans. I listened to a bunch of Dylan, and I listened to Harry Nilsson, who's a guy that I nearly thought about nominating for this show because
It's come up before.
Yeah, I mean, and so all of my early memories are of just being exposed to music constantly by my parents. My dad has has still a huge vinyl collection. When I grew up a little older, and like the relationship between my parents became, I would go out and listen to music, and then they would tell me how much better the music that they'd grown up listening to was
Classic.
than the stuff that I was listening to. But then whenever we found a crossover, an area of like, I would find something and they'd be excited by it as well. That was great. That was like a huge moment for me because I was like, I've finally found something that I could introduce my parents to and they will enjoy. So like, the first Eels album I got and bought them for Christmas one year, and it became my mum's favorite album of that year, and we just listened to it over and over and over again.
He's so good. He's massively underrated as well.
Absolutely.
Massively.
And that album, that Beautiful Freak, the first album, I think is like a stellar debut. One of the best
that one,
of
Michael?
all time.
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah,
Great.
Did you get to also like go see concerts with your family? Was that a thing?
So there's a family myth. So Pink Floyd were amongst my favorite bands as a child. There's a story of my parents coming home and finding me sat next to the record player crying because in the lyrics and in the flesh, in the Wall by Pink Floyd, it says that Pink's ill, and apparently as a child that really upset me.
Oh,
but the
God.
key moment that I remember is my dad going to see the Pink Floyd The Wall at Earl's Court, where they built the wall, and but I knew he was going to see it, and threw a tantrum for a week at age 4.5 because he would not take me to go and see this album, which I had been listening to.
Yeah.
Then, so the first time I saw Pink Floyd was with my dad. We went to see the Pulse concert in '92, which I still have up here somewhere.
Damn.
That's the one that the CD came with the little light that blinked on the side of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I have my ticket back here. I don't know whether I can.
You can see the back there, yeah.
There it is.
Mm-hmm.
So this thing here has got my ticket from the very first show, really, I went to see. I think I was 92, so I was 16.
Damn.
And my dad took me to go see Floyd for my birthday. But from then on, it was festivals were the thing for me. Like
Was it? Okay. What kinds of festivals? Yeah, what
done
kinds of festivals are we
Glastonbury?
talking? Yeah, right up there. Oh, I see. Okay.
All right. Okay.
So, what do you think about Glastonbury these days? What's it do for you? What's it not do for you?
I really, really miss going to festivals.
Mm-hmm.
Inflation is what it is, and people will pay what the value of the thing is. But the ticket for my camping festival up there for Glastonbury in the year 2000 was £87 for the 3 days. I believe current tickets go for about £550 for the full weekend. So,
and that's not all in either.
No.
That's just the ticket. Yeah.
But so like when I hit 17, 18, my parents were like, go to festivals. And I was like, yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, though it was kind of pre-internet, 96, 97 was when I started going to festivals. So the internet existed, but there was no Ticketmaster. No one was promoting who was touring near me.
Yeah.
So if I wanted to see a band, I saw them on a festival poster and I was like, wow, okay, Muse is playing here. I can go and get a ticket to that and I can go see Muse. I bought my Glastonbury 2000 ticket because Nine Inch Nails were headlining and it was the only chance I had to see them. They played 2 gigs in the UK that year and had not played there for 5 years beforehand. And I was a huge goth at the time. I was like, I have to go see Nine Inch Nails live.
That's so great.
I know.
Where does your discovery of this particular album fit into this timeline? Do you remember the exact moment you discovered it? Do you remember?
I do. There's a little story to this as well. So at the time, there's a lot of stuff had kind of changed in my life, and I was living in a little apartment on my own. And at the time, if you went to a record store, a CD store, whatever, there was an HMV in the little tiny town where I lived. And if you walked in once a month, they would have these little kind of sampler CDs, which would be, hey, here's one track from 14 bands that you've never heard of. If you buy anything, we'll just throw this in for you.
Yeah.
And I bought a CD from HMV and it came with one of these samplers. And on that sampler was Newborn by Elbow.
Hell yeah.
Amongst other things.
Yeah.
And at the time, I was horrendously broke, so I was super happy every time I got new music to listen to, which I hadn't had to pay for. So I would buy a CD and I'd get another bonus CD, and I would probably wear out the sampler CD more than whatever it was that I was whatever I paid for.
Isn't that funny?
But the Elbow album, that song just stuck with me for like a month and a half, and then I got paid again and I squirreled away whatever money I could afford, and I went and I bought Asleep in the Back and got another sampler CD the next month. But so that album kind of came at a really weirdly pivotal moment in my life, and I bought it on the strength of one song which had really spoken to me, and then ended up finding the entire album just kind of completely reflecting the mood I was feeling at the time. It was like the ultimate kind of, you're sad and depressed and you don't really know what to do with your life. And then here is someone who is just turning that into 12 tracks of music.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's sort of the sadness you're talking about. I mean, like on my listen to it, I mean, the cover is blue. Like, I mean, there's that, but also like, I mean, that was one of the first words I wrote down after I'd listened to this a couple times. It does sort of feel like, even though there are sort of peaks and valleys throughout the album, it does feel like sadness is the thing that it's kind of capturing overall.
Yeah. A while ago, someone asked me what the difference between being sad and melancholy was. And I think this is an album which tells you what the difference between being, like, for me, this album is a melancholy album. Makes you feel sad, but in a way that you're kind of reflective and you're happy that you're sad listening to it. And it doesn't make me want to sit in a corner and bawl. It just reminds me or makes me think of times which were not so great, but in a way that I can appreciate.
Yeah, absolutely. I liked this. The quote I had from the Stereo Gum, they have a really great retro on it for the 20-year anniversary. And the quote I pulled from that I thought was really, they call it bleary, nocturnal, rain-soaked, alternating between haunting stories and nostalgic flashbacks, both warm and unpleasant. And I'm like, wow, there's a really liminal, like sad place that I think it's something that I've often said to therapists before, where I'm like, I feel down, but I don't think I feel like depressed. You know, like I don't feel like I can't get out of bed, but I feel blue for sure. And they're like, yeah, well, it's degrees, you know, it's degrees on the spectrum, right? So there's this, they're tuning into kind of the range on the spectrum of sadness that absolutely. I think is quite particular. And
so I have a long history with therapy. Again, I mentioned this in my bio. As well as my family being highly musical and highly inspired, I also come from a family where I used to watch TV shows where someone would say, is there any history of mental illness in your family? And I would never understand why they would ask that question, because surely the answer is always yes. So like
right.
my, like they're, all of my family going back to like my grandmother, but both my parents, my sister, everyone has had a series of kind of mental health struggles, which is part of what has made them inspired in some ways. I took the opposite path and I went to therapy for a long time, and therapy I found was very, very helpful. But a large part of why I went to therapy kind of happened while this album was happening.
You got to be willing to reflect, right?
Sure.
It's
sure,
like
absolutely.
It doesn't work. It doesn't work unless you really want to do it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And so I was, I don't know, how old was I? Like probably in my mid-20s. I had one of those years where I broke up with a girl that I had been together with for 4 years about 2 weeks before I was planning to propose to her. Completely out of the blue. The following week, the company that I was working for went out of business and I lost my job. Then I desperately had to look for a new job, found a job that I could do working at the local hospital in the town where I was. But the job that I was doing was helping them go and make doctors and nurses aware that they were about to lose their job. So I was I took this role and instantly became the most hated person the building that I worked in.
The worst possible HR position of all time.
Absolutely.
Because you're not even doing it, you're just warning them.
Yeah.
They could be completely blindsided. What the hell?
I did all of these things all at the same time, and then I still lived in the house with the girl that I broke up with, because we signed a lease 6 months earlier. Neither of us could afford to move out.
Yeah.
Eventually, the lease ended. I left. I got an apartment I really couldn't afford on the salary from this job that I hated. I was absolutely flat broke and completely depressed. And at the time, all of my support system had kind of moved away. My parents had retired and moved to Spain. My sister had just got married. She moved over to the other side of the country, to Manchester. And a lot of my friends were notably concerned about me, but they all thought it was the breakup. You've broken up with this girl. And I was like, no, I'm fine. I just need some time. But really, I was not very fine at all. I was just trying to kind of push everybody away. And I would go back to my apartment where I was flat broke, and I would listen to this album on repeat as my kind of, I don't know, mantra for the opening track. Any Day Now, I would just listen to that over and over again. Then how's about getting out of this place any day? And I would be like, oh yeah, that's something to cling on to.
Hell yeah.
But
it
the
really,
joy that
it met you there. It met you.
It really did.
It met you where you needed it.
A part of my genuine belief about music, having spent a lot of time thinking about my emotional state, is the power of it is that for me, it tells me that what other people are feeling is the same way that I feel. It mirrors, it gives me assurance that emotional states that I experience are experienced by other people in the same way, because they would not be able to produce this music, which so perfectly reflects how I feel, if they haven't also experienced something very, very similar. So for me, it's like a kind of mental health touchstone. If there's music which reflects an emotional state, then someone out there has felt it the same way that.
I think this is the exact same sort of conversation we had when we talked about Nine Inch Nails' The Downward Spiral.
Sure.
I mean, in a much more conflicted way, because I think that there's something a little more dangerous going on that album. I could see how an album like this would be, it lets you, I don't want to use the word wallow, but I'm going to use the word wallow for now, because I think there is a better word. It lets you kind of wallow in whatever those feelings are, so that you can process them, so that you're not ignoring them, you're not repressing them, you're slowly dealing with them. And I could see how this album would be a much healthier way of doing that than, listening to The Downward Spiral.
Yes.
That's a different kind of sadness.
I listened to that as well, but
And that's like a freak out sadness. That's like a sadness where you're like, I'm going to lose it. That's that kind of sadness. And there's something really clear about the way in which he sings. You know, there's like a clarity. The lyrics are so important to this album. Like it's not Kid A, where, you know, that's a Wallow album for me. But Kid A, the lyrics are, what's incidental, and by design, right? But this is a different kind of rock music. It occupies a very specific slice of that era.
Yeah, it really does. And like, for me, so since we talked about Radiohead, I mentioned I'd had so the very first time I heard you guys, Matt, I think, mentioned that he'd met you and had listened to your podcast for about a month. And he was like, "Hey, I know you like music podcasts. You should listen to these guys." I ran into one of them at my job, and I've listened to their stuff, and I think it's really good. So I listened to your first episode, and in the first episode, I think you said that In Rainbows was the first Radiohead album that you'd listened to. And like, when you said that, like, my heart absolutely sank. I was like, oh my God, these are children. These are the youngest people in the world. Because like the first Radiohead album that I'd listened to was Pablo Honey, when kind of Creep came out. And I was like, but fortunately, having listened to more of your stuff, I've become more aware that you just maybe were slightly later to the Radiohead experience. Yeah.
Well, Rich, you and I are closer in age, because my first listen was the Bends. So
okay, absolutely.
And it's funny because it was here's this. I'll just turn that up a little bit if you want. But there's I also got their whole discography to that point on a flash drive.
Wow.
And I dumped it onto my computer, and that's how I first came to know Radiohead, was through a file that contained, and this is like all we were talking about this with my sister, all sorts of unlabeled tracks, stuff that didn't have the titles in there, and I was just listening to some. I had no idea what it was, zero context, But then, of course, there were a few that the proper albums had folders of their own.
Yeah.
I do wish, Tyler, you could have had the experience of picking up Kid A on the day it came out, putting it into your CD player, and being like, what the absolute hell is going on? Like, because it was crazy.
In my listen through, I kind of pick albums or bands that I know I want to cover in detail, and I kind of do them all at the same time. So I've literally just done the entire Radiohead back catalogue, and I'm about halfway through writing the article about listening to Radiohead. But like, I had that exact experience with Kid A. Like, my housemate, the guy I was living with at the time, is the person who made it so that I didn't just give up on listening to Radiohead, because I loved OK Computer, I loved the Bends, and I was, and Pablo Honey was like the debut album that everyone kind of went, yep, okay, fine, but really the Bends is the start.
Yep.
Glad we're on the same page there.
And then I listened to Kid A, and I was like, what on earth is this? Where are the guitars? Where's the stuff that I like about this band? But my housemate just loved it, fell in love with it instantly, and just played it constantly around the house. And if I wasn't in that house listening to that, I would have put that to one side. I would have listened to it 3 times and gone, nah, not for me. But 3 months of exposure, suddenly it just started to kind of seep into the lower levels of my consciousness. And then I was like, oh, actually, I think I might really like this album. And then when Amnesiac came out and I listened to that, I was like, oh, actually, these might be my 2 favorite Radiohead albums.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about a standout, shall we? And then we'll talk about after we let our listeners get a taste. But what have you chosen as the standout track?
So I have chosen for my standout track Powder Blue.
All right. So if you're on YouTube, you're about to hear it in the playlist, which is our recommended method for listening to our episodes, by the way, is via the YouTube playlist, because you get the whole song. You get the whole song in there. So give it a listen. Here's Powder Blue by Elba.